Welcome to week 9 Q&A session of the OBS guided study group. Questions? Because I don't have answers.
I just have one question.
Okay.
Why do you not have any answers?
Basically because most of them were covered in the 3 videos we were supposed to watch. I mean, when they got into the transition parts with all the different transitions and everything, I looked at them. There's some neat stuff there, but again, it's something that I don't see me using, so I didn't do a lot of deep diving into, you know.
Well, that was one of the things that wasn't updated in his course. And what was it, about 3 weeks ago? You can now, I mean, transitions were global. You had one transition and it applied to everything. Well, now there's a setting in there where you can actually go and add individual transitions to each scene.
So now, where did you find that, Bill? Because I did go in and look at the transitions, and I can see there's how many? 4, 2, 4, 5 of them. And the duration. So where did you find?
Well, I can screen share and show you that. I mean, it's up to Andrew if he wants.
Yeah, go ahead. I'd like to.
Okay. You should be able to see my OBS. And sorry, Lolan, I'm on your thing. I hope that's okay.
That's quite fine.
Okay, I got to get rid of this little share screen thing from Zoom. Okay, if you go to any transition, like on this one, for example, we used all
international flavor here.
We used all
you will notice
fades.
Right.
So fade is the universal thing for each one. But if you want to go to, say, let's go to this one of Nathan, for example. If I right click on that, down at the bottom, it gives me an option to transition override.
Oh, okay. Right on.
And then you'll find the transitions to the right. But the thing about that is you have to add those transitions over here to the main transition first.
Oh,
okay. And then remember, once you add a transition, like I can go in and if I want, I mean, those are some I've added. But if I hit the plus button, I can go to Luma Wipe, for example, and you're going to want to rename them because they're going to come up Luma Wipe, then Luma Wipe 1, Luma Wipe 2, and you're never going to remember which which one is which. But then if you go into Lunar, or you go in there, I mean, there's, I don't know how many there are there. There's good 15 or 20. But so anyway, we're going to cancel that. But in the Luma Wipes, I added a curtain up, a curtain down, and there's an option in there when you select the Luma Wipe to invert it, which just means it does the opposite. So they have one that simulates a curtain going up, and I thought by inverting it, I could have the curtain come down. But it actually turns out it doesn't really work like a curtain coming down. You'd have to see it, but
yeah.
So then, for example, if you wanted to add it to that Mexico one, you would right-click on it, go to Transition Override, select the one you want, say Curtain Up. Once you select it, you can right-click on it and go back into it again. Oh, there it is down at the bottom. And you can set the time for that particular transition right at the, I'm not sure if you can see it at the bottom of the screen.
No, can't, no.
Okay, well, it says 5,000 milliseconds or 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So then, otherwise, it's going to transition with the global transition time.
Okay.
So now that I've added that, if I go back to Canada to Mexico, see, now it's doing that particular Luma Wipe instead of a fade. But when I go to Nathan's, there's the curtain up.
All right.
Okay.
So you can add it to each scene, select a time for it, But yeah, you have to. Oh, and that's why the other ones, because I forgot to go back and set my global setting to fade. That's why the other ones were swiping instead of fading. So there are things you have to remember to do, but it's pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I was aware that it probably, that video hadn't been updated because even what he was showing under transitions isn't what I was seeing.
Well, and you're going to get a couple of default ones. You have to, if you don't have the stinger and you don't have the other ones, you have to actually add them.
Oh, well,
and I thought originally I had fade. What were the three I had? Fade.
I had fade, cut, and what was the other one?
Stinger, I think.
That may be it.
So what I have is swipe, slide, stinger, fade to color, and Luna white. That's
right.
What I,
now, Luna white could be any one of those 15 or 20 that are in there.
Yeah. And so fade must be there because that's the one that I have selected. So
yeah, and I think fade is there by default. I mean, you can probably take it out, but it's there by default.
Yeah. But I didn't get a sense of what a stinger was.
Okay, I can tell you real quick. A stinger is something that comes over this screen, like what we're seeing right now. If you watch the video, you saw that globe that moved across his screen. It's like a transparent overlay with some object that just moves across the screen. That's what it is. Okay. It doesn't change the background. It just sort of puts something over it. And usually it doesn't cover the whole screen all the time. When it reaches its center point, it'll cover the whole screen and then move off.
And usually you add stingers between transitions.
Yeah.
So
that would be where be back in 5 minutes or stay tuned or
yeah, or in your case, you know, when you're going from an intro to the show or something like. I mean, you could use them anywhere, but
yeah.
And Michael uses them on the H&M show. Every once in a while, you'll see the H&M go across the screen.
Oh yeah.
And that's a stinger.
That's a stinger. Thank you.
So it does, yeah, it doesn't remove what's on there. It just adds something, a top layer that actually.
There's a lot of stuff here that a person could spend a lot of time learning, but I guess it all depends on what it is that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And to keep it, and in view of that, keep it as simple as possible.
Well, and you're going to find, I think, I mean, you're using it every week now. You're still getting used to it, but once you get used to it,
yeah,
you're going to say, you know, I wouldn't mind adding this, you know, or you're going to find that you're going to instinctively want to add more things.
Well, you can get bored with things after a while.
Yeah. Well, and if you're watching other people and you see, like we watch Michael and he does something, how did he do that? That's a neat little thing.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
And it may be simple enough that, you know, even I would want to try it. You know, like that. So far, the major thing that I've done is change my transition time from 300 to 3,000 milliseconds. You know, and so it does a real slow fade, you know, and bleeds in. But you know, as I use it more and get familiar with it, I'll probably be using more stuff. The thing with me is I don't have a big call to do live broadcast. You know, it's more like my morning thing and everything. And most of that, it's not worth broadcasting.
Yeah.
Because I never know when somebody's come in or what turn the conversation's going to take. I mean, sometimes we talk about stuff we definitely don't want. No.
All right.
But there's lots of little things. You know, I'm experimenting with it to do more than a show with it. And I like the fact that you can add all of these layers and create things for recordings. And I mean, one thing I figured out this week was with my new website is that I can put up in the corner a small video that actually has me transforming from a freak to a geek.
Yeah.
And it sits up there, and it's kind of cool. Well, I think it's cool.
I thought it was. Yeah. Yeah, it's neat, you know, and one thing really I like about being able to do the Zoom and the OBS is I can kick in the OBS if I'm like in the morning thing. All right, we're talking about somebody's going to screen share, you know. I can start OBS, bang, like that, hit the record button and get a screen share, you know, them screen share and get just a recording of that thing, and that's it. And then we can go back to normal, shut OBS off and go, you know. It's not something I have to have running all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, it gives you a lot of things you can play with, because you can add, you know, whereas in Zoom you can put up a virtual background,
right?
But that's kind of the extent of it, and the same thing with most recording software. But if you go into an OBS, I mean, you can have little things happening
in all four corners,
all over the place.
Yeah.
And that's,
of course, that's when your eyes wind up like this. You know?
Well, I think maybe too much of that might be distractive for your audience, but you have to kind of pick and.
Well, unless your audience is kids, and then the more activity going on all over the screen, the better it seems to be.
But even for a show, to be able to switch up the layout once in a while, you know, like Michael does when he's interviewing someone, they go big, he goes small. Or, you know, they move it around, or they go. That kind of keeps people interested.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, especially like in the Plusword show, where it's, you know, the partners are here and then the other partners are here, and the whole thing is just, you know, it does add, depending on what kind of production you're doing, it adds a whole lot to it. Yeah.
And that's the perfect example. It gives him the ability, and I'm the worst one for trying to come up with answers or clues. You know, you sit there and you've got that dead air for 10 or 15 seconds. He can throw something on the screen, whether it's music in the background or it's a stinger or whatever, right?
Or whether it's the stunned look of the partner that's waiting for your clue, you know?
So,
I found the hotkey thing, too, interesting, too. Of course, if I was going to be playing with it, hotkeys a whole lot, I'd just do like, you know, I'd get one of those Elgato streaming decks and be done with it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, because if you get so many of those, you wind up with a, you know, 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with all the codes on them, because you can't remember them all anyway. You know, so,
that was the last thing he said in there. Well, if you're not going to get the stream deck, write yourself a list. And I'm going,
really?
It's just another one of those pieces of paper here. No,
but even with the Stream Deck, and it's a great device, you know. But all right, so you've got a Stream Deck and you've got 15 buttons with icons on them. Okay, you got to remember what's under each icon to know which one to hit to get to whatever it is that you're going for, you know.
Yeah, and I think you'd find out from Michael, part of that's organization. I mean, the four major things he has under his four fingers, right? And he knows by going back and forth.
Yeah.
But the hotkeys, to me, I mean, it's probably something, if I wanted, it was something I was doing all of the time and I want an easier way of doing it, I might create a hotkey and learn that hotkey, then add another one and add another one and add another one. But I think you're right. I mean, the way OBS is set up is so easy. If you label your transitions right and your sources right, I don't see the difference between just switching between
C's and doing the hotkey. That's true. Yeah.
But now, I mean, people like Epos Fox, they're doing gaming, so they might have a couple of games overlaid and then cameras of themselves overlaid.
Yeah. So, he gets in when he some of his gaming videos are really, you know, I look at him and say, oh wow, but I'm never going to get to that level or anywhere near it. I mean, number one, I'm not particularly adept at games, and I've never played video games. You know, the word puzzles and that kind of thing, that's one thing, but shoot 'em up action games, I've just never gotten into.
Yeah. I used to play them, but then my son turned 3 and they weren't fun for me anymore because I always lost.
Okay. Oh.
You're muted, Lola.
I thought I had unmuted myself, but it didn't take. Anyway, getting back to the hotkey thing, I like to see what I'm doing. And it strikes me that if you were just typing in a hotkey, you might not be seeing what you're doing.
Well, it depends on how you think of a hotkey. I mean, basically, Control-C and Control-V are nothing but hotkeys.
Hotkeys, exactly.
Yeah. And so you know what it does. So
Yes.
if you know what it's doing ahead of time, and then make a hotkey that will not only name it, but act as a clue to trigger memory as to what it does.
Yeah.
You know, like, Control F is fine. You know, if you do a mnemonic with whatever hotkey it is, it'll work all right. But like, if you got 24 hotkeys, there's no way on earth I'm going to remember, And one thing I wasn't clear on, what is the difference between, can you do a Control Shift C?
Like uppercase and lowercase would make a difference?
Yeah. Like okay. Control C is copy. Capital C would be like compare or something that starts with a C. Does case make a difference? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that either.
Yeah.
And yeah, to me, hotkeys were no different than, if I have two scenes that are very similar, but there's a slight difference, maybe you have somebody's image up there and you want to put a lower third.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I would just make another scene and label it, guest video with lower third or guest video or.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I think when I was playing around, I think I created one, and it was what was it? It was S plus L3 for speaker plus lower third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess it just depends on how quick you have to switch between that stuff, and I'm sure there's probably a use for hotkeys, but for me, I don't. I don't see a huge advantage. I don't see any disadvantage. When you hit a scene, you don't know what's going to happen. If you forgot to go back and make sure everything is sized, you don't know what's going to happen that first time. It's the same with a hotkey. Yeah.
What were you going to say, William?
Well, I was just going to say, it's been mentioned, but maybe it's something that we should emphasize, is the importance of the way we title things. Oh, there goes my phone. Sorry.
No problem.
It's so how important it is to label things in your scenes and label things in the sources so that you can see what goes together like that. Because Bill, I remember when you and I first started, we didn't sort of cotton onto that. And
well, I caught on to it pretty quickly. You'll notice in that thing of yours, there were 136 sources. Yeah. And I named each one very specifically.
Yeah.
Because as you get more and more and more,
yeah,
you don't know what the hell you meant by
yeah.
I learned that very quickly and not just label what it is, but label whether it's a media source or whether it's an image or whether it's I put all of that stuff in my labels now.
Yeah. And that by my doing that as well on Bill's instruction, by the way, it sure makes it a lot easier for me to know what the heck I'm doing. So I really
well, if you end up with three things and you've got media source and then you got media source 1 and media source 2, You know, after 3 or 4 months, if you haven't had to play with them, you don't know which is.
Yeah,
Now,
no.
one of the other tips I would give people is when you are moving things and changing things, that little eye is wonderful. I mean, if you're not sure, I mean, I always click the eye to make sure that what I'm going to change is what I'm going to change. So when I click the eye and I see it disappear, I know I'm on the right
Yeah.
source.
Yeah.
And that's,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
that's all practice and using it and getting used to doing that stuff. And I mean, it seems like the long way, but my grandfather used to say, Billy, often the long way is the quickest way home.
It is. Yeah, I know when I first started, I had like 4 scenes. And it was scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4. And I could remember what the first 2 were. The third and the fourth one, I knew they were opposite of each other, but I couldn't remember whether it was the picture in the lower left and the upper right, or the lower left and the up, which one was which, and I was constantly clicking the wrong one. Finally, it says scene LH for left hand and scene RH for right hand, and then I knew where the picture was going to be.
Yeah.
Somebody wants you desperately, dear.
Yeah, well, I left a message for somebody, and she's calling me back now.
I see.
Robin, I'm in a hangout right now, so I'll call you back. Right.
You've been taking lessons from Sheila.
But yeah, this week was a good review of that stuff again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, this is one I think most people who play with OBS will be interested in, because there's not a lot of really high-end stuff. This is stuff we're at least going to play with it a little bit, whether we use it regularly or not. It's stuff that we need to know how to do in case we want to do it real quick.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah. For me, of the whole thing, the piece on transitions was the most important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like, especially after Bill telling me about the Luna white thing and all those things in it. I did get to go in and play just a little bit with that, and I thought, oh, that's nice to have all those at hand, even if I'm not going to be using them right now.
I didn't remember to go and look. Was there a cube in there? A cube transition?
It seems to me that there was, but I can't say for certain, because I had been playing with Windows Movie Maker right before that. And I don't remember whether that was the cube I saw or whether it was in the transitions in OBS I saw.
I'll go look right now. Well, they don't have anything labeled cube, but they've got square and other things, so who knows? You'd have to go and look at each one.
Watch it, yeah. In fact, that's what I had the idea. I thought, now if I could do that and film that and then just make a video of all the transitions happening, just one right after the other, like take a screenshot and throw it into, and that's something, I don't know whether any of you got into Superflix before it shut down to new members or not, but apparently they have extended the date that it's going to close. It was supposed to close at the end of March 2018. It's now not closing until August of 2018. So if you got into it before it shut down for new members, you can use it up until then. It won't stop at the end of this month.
Well, I've already replaced it with Zoom and OBS.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Well, no, I won't say that because we are still recording. I'll wait until we get off air for that. I have a piece of although this may not get posted until after tomorrow anyway. But that's something. It's got nothing to do with OBS, but it does have to do with recording, and that is the live chat accompanying the videos on the YouTube now.
Yeah.
Has anybody actually seen that happen?
No, and I saw somebody post today that they haven't seen it, and I went and checked a couple. I checked, I
Okay.
think Michael's, and I checked Terry's, and I checked different things that I go to quite often. And
Yeah.
it's still, I'm still
hadn't-
getting a message up top that the live chat is not
Yeah.
available.
Well, apparently, Peggy K, there was something said on Twitter, and it is a slow rollout. And I guess it's a very slow rollout because, I mean, I've checked some of the big ones, but then I noticed that you use the trimmer, you don't get the live chat. Once you use that trimmer thing, it kills the replay of the live chat. So apparently, if you're doing live broadcasting, you do live chats, you don't do any editing afterwards, or it kills the replay of the live chat. It's what it's looking like.
Oh, so it must be posted right on the tail end of things. So if you do any trimming, you're taking that code out of there, maybe.
That's what it sounds like to me, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I don't know. I'd love to be able to get it just so I can play with it to find out, you know. Because, you know, suppose you like take it down and put it in an editor and don't trim it, but make some other type of change. Will that editing interfere with it, or will it, you know, let it go on as usual?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I don't think that's a clear point yet. I don't think it's out long enough for anybody to play with to know the answer to that yet. Although it would be interesting to have the answer.
Well, it's good to see that they're at least working on that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they at least start with that, we may find that in the future we can actually bring those comments on screen with a little VUI, or I'm not saying for sure. I haven't even heard that as a rumor, but I'm just saying that the fact that they're at least looking at that, where they've abandoned it for what, a year and a half?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. This.
I guess what you're saying, Bill, is that we get the sense that it's somebody's focusing on it for a change.
Okay. I just got a message from Michael. He is in the other room.
Okay.
And, you know, he said, I'm sure you're doing the OBS thing, but I'm over in the other room. I said, we're about to wrap up and we'll be there shortly. So, you know, if nobody's got anything else, Roland, do you have anything?
No, I did not.
Well, I tell you, let me go over. Oh, drat it all. Stop. Go over here and get the link for this. Get the room link, get the room link, get the link. Got a lot of people have posted over to there. Maybe the name what it looks like. Okay, Control C, go over here, Control V. That's the link to the room, and I will be over right after y'all.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Take care. Bye.
Be there.
Now we got this. Take this to gallery view. Okay. And then